and ask the question, where'd the money come from? Who's buying? Back in April, it turned out it was foreign investors. There was Asian retail, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds outside the U.S. because I think they've seen the story before. And they started that whole rally. And then what happened is FOMO then kicks in, fear of missing out. And the idea that, well, what's the worst that can happen here? And if you look back to the financial crisis, the worst can happen is you lose your house, you lose, your money and all that, which is pretty damn bad. If you look back to 2020, what could you have lost? Well, you could have lost your money and your life.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Hey, we're getting close to the middle of June. We got trade deals going on right and left. We got the markets trading, getting closer and closer to record levels. And, well, we like when we get to this point in time to talk with Andrew Horowitz, disciplined investor. Andrew, it's great to have you back on the show.
Hey, Kerry, how are you? Thanks.
Okay. We're enjoying this nice, warm Florida weather here.
Hot.
And while Florida's heating up, so are the markets, aren't they?
Yeah, things are resilient. There has definitely been a significant bid to markets, generally speaking, and any kind of good news really kicks things off. Some of the positions we have, for example, in the last few days, and more speculative to a degree, like our SMRs, our small modular reactor stocks, nuclear, or as I call it, new clear energy, not nuclear, new clear energy. So everybody can wrap their head around something different that sounds good versus thinking about the China syndrome with Jack Lemmon back in the 70s, is breaking out. I mean, we're talking in the last 5 months that we've owned these things, 170 to 200% returns already.
Amazing. Yeah, I have a friend who works for a large contractor. He's retired, but because he knows all about the nukes, they can't let him go. Mm-hmm. So they pay him a fortune to be a consultant, which is kind of funny. And he's big on those modulars. He's working on them behind the scenes, and he's convinced it's the future. But unfortunately, what he told me is it's not quite as simple as you say, oh, let's just put one in over here or over there. It's not really that simple, but it is a big advance from where it used to be.
Yeah, the word small is really not the best use of that because small is relative to the big, right? It's not these things that you can just carry around on your back. Although one day, maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, suitcase power plants. Yeah, we've kind of come from nuclear subs and nuclear powered aircraft carriers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are small modular and they're portable by nature. So we thought it was all over in April, and here we are. We were supposed to sell and go away in May, and we're still buying.
I mean, it looks like the big. So something happens. I think something happens from a psychological standpoint when we have these events. You look back in history and you see when you've ever had these more recent history, probably back since 2008, where you look at these big drawdowns of the markets where you have a 8, 10, 15, 20% move. And then it happens, it's abrupt. It happens, for a reason potentially. And then all of a sudden it starts to turn the corner pretty fast. We had another V recovery again after this big shock. But what's interesting is that the bids keep coming. We look back to April and we did some of the forensics on this, and you can find that and ask the question, where'd the money come from? Who's buying? Back in April, it turned out it was foreign investors. There was Asian retail, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds outside the U.S. because I think they've seen the story before. And they started that whole rally. And then what happened is FOMO then kicks in, fear of missing out. And the idea that, well, what's the worst that can happen here? And if you look back to the financial crisis, the worst can happen is you lose your house, you lose, your money and all that, which is pretty damn bad. If you look back to 2020, what could you have lost? Well, you could have lost your money and your life. You look back to 2025, what could you have lost? A couple of bucks. There's no,
Worse.
you're not losing your house. You're not losing your house. You're not losing your life. So big deal, right? You follow what I'm saying?
It's only money.
It's only money. And with the current idea that we've seen this movie before, the Fed will step in, the government will step in. Trump comes in and says, buy stocks. He said that a few times, but, and then things are starting to pick up. And then miraculously, we get all these deals that are done or pauses on the tariffs. The tariffs went into place. They're supposed to go into place. Last minute was, okay, we'll lift them up. Everybody freaked out. So the bark is much worse than the bite. And we've discovered this. Whether you want to call it the taco trade, which I'm not a big fan of saying, or whether you say that this administration is trying to negotiate and put the pressures on, but really is not going to have the teeth to bite into this situation because they know that the ramifications are a bond market that could sell off, a dollar that can sell off, and the stock market that could sell off, and trillions of dollars are at risk here over what? $100 billion a month? You're going to go for multiple trillions of dollars when you can have, 80 billion or 100 billion maybe making in tariffs and maybe 400 billion a year. It makes no sense. This makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, risk reward, right? Risk reward. You always got to be looking at that whether you're investing in anything. So what sectors are you particularly upbeat about?
Let's start with the downbeat. Right now, there's a lot of concern over retail. You've seen a big disparity in numbers. So Lululemon, you saw just get absolutely eviscerated recently on their outlook, saying that they're, the dynamic geopolitics, that was the words they used in their conference call, actually, was something that really spooked people. And then you see the other side, like Dave & Buster's actually doing okay. And that's interesting for a place that you just throw your money away, essentially, right? So people are not buying. Yeah, right. You throw away your money at playing skee ball at Dave & Buster's, but you're not buying yourself a pair of workout pants. Walmart, Costco, concerned about the consumer, but yet things are okay. Whether or not they're going to have to eat some of the tariffs or raise prices, but the consumer, again, is resilient. And depending on where you are, I mean, I can tell you, I was in the Bahamas last weekend. We were at a little private club, beach bar, because we were invited. It was a long story. And the prices were absurd.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, absurd. Absurd to a point that, like, oh my God, absurd. Literally, now I brought a bunch of people there, so you have to wait for the whole story here because I'm not as nuts as you're about to think I am. I got a hamburger and a drink, and it was $100.
Yeah.
Now,
sounds like the Bahamas that I
said it's not that bad in the Bahamas. It's not that's ridiculous. And I said, look, I brought all these people to this private club for them to check it out. So they comped it. They comped my I wasn't buying that $65 burger without being comped.
How's
no way.
Usually they don't have good burgers in the Bahamas.
It was they brought everything in from Miami. Everything's brought into this one little beach club. It's called the Bonita Beach Club in Bimini. It's brand new, $5 million and up houses, private beach club, private cabanas. They asked me to come because I brought 30 boats over to Bimini on a trip that we went to. So we got entree to this place and spent a whole lot of money. My point, though, is that there are people still spending. Now, it's not just my crowd or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. It's people are spending money, depending on where you are. There's pockets that are problematic. People don't need maybe another pair of Lululemon pants. They just don't need them, so they're not buying them. But they are doing other things. They are going to finally back to the Dollar General, et cetera. Okay, so put that aside. You got some things that are good, some things that are bad, some restaurants that are having good times, some that are bad, and big V recoveries. Look at a company I was looking today at Wingstop, W-I-N-G is the symbol. Total, almost a double since April. Because why? Well, we got, we're not worried about chicken, bird flu, all that's been resolved, right? There was a big problem with the eggs that happened to do with bird flu and culling of the chickens, which, by the way, have wings, which Wingstop needs to serve their particular brand.
Right.
So that's been resolved. And some of these things that have been playing out, the inflation numbers that we saw this week are a little bit better. That should help the banks a little bit. And we see the yield curve in pretty good shape right now. The employment numbers in pretty good shape. Technology clearly is some areas. We like some of the defense firms that are continuing on, some of the commodities in certain areas. Healthcare questionable. We think that RFK Jr. is going to continue this stampede. Just fired the whole vaccination panel.
I saw that
just this week. But yet, we're looking at companies that are like that have seen a big sell-off when he first came in, like a CRISPR, which is a company that makes CRISPR is a kind of process for gene splicing and genetic engineering, if you will, hoping to solve a lot of problems. They have a couple of products out there already that are helping, but you got a few in that, very select few in that area, and people are really worried about that under RFK Jr., but it seems he's not really hitting that, and the stock seems to be a little bit more resilient lately. Some of the names in like a Crocs that I like. We just bought a company called Generac, which is
I have one of theirs.
This is that you probably bought it right before a hurricane season or right after, either one.
Yeah, I bought it when I moved into this place in 2021, and there was a backlog of the things, and finally I got it. It's a 6-month backlog.
We like it this time of year. There's seasonality trends that show that Generac is actually a great stock. It has been. If you look at the analog going back and the pattern, which I know you're a big fan of, going back many, many years, that starting in about June-ish, mid-June, when you start getting the idea and people say, oh, it's hurricane season again, it's storm season again, it's rainy season again, it's flood season again, tornadoes, blah, 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 right, all this stuff. Well, generator company. This is the only pure play generator company really out there. And all you want is, as horrible as it sounds, I sound like a roofer. You sound like a guy that right now that owns a roofing company. Oh, I wish for a storm.
Yeah.
So you have that area. I still like some of the technology names that are like an Apple oven, which got a bad rap for a while, but it's come back very strong. Some of the Chinese ATT, Tour holdings are basically like hotel chains in China, especially if you open back up a little bit. That could be interesting. I think that European stocks still have a pretty good valuation overall. Bonds, stay away from the long end of the bond because I think it's going to be a very bumpy ride. Mm-hmm. Gold still there's still an appetite for gold.
And silver.
Platinum, silver. Yep, in those areas. We'll see what happens with oil. It's in a range. I don't think it's going to break out of any ranges right here. It doesn't seem like that, and something really weird happens. With all the things that are going on in Russia and in Middle East, it's still not. OPEC wants to continue pumping.
Geopolitical risk for sure. What's your feeling about big pharma? It looks like Trump has kind of declared war on them. Not sure if his executive order is enough to bring down their prices, but they might voluntarily bring them down to avoid what could potentially be really bad.
I think I've come to the point that the bad things that the Trump administration are doing don't have any teeth, and the good things are really sparking some stocks. I'll give you an example. You got this whole thing going. Do you see Eli Lilly stock? I mean, it was up dramatically this week. You look at some of the names in that industry. Yeah, this Pfizer and all, a few of them have just been laggard. I mean, hardcore laggards. Moderna, just ugly, right? But some of the big names that have some important cures, I don't know how much they're going to be really dinged. Now, obviously, with the executive order to bring down pricing to match what we have in various countries, that whole thing where there's a irregularity. So I guess the best way to put it in pricing with certain drugs, why are we paying more than they are? And we're the ones that make it here, and strange, right? But you look at some of the executive orders with the nuclear energy, or even the, we'll call it autonomous / light duty aircraft, like a Joby or an Archer Aviation. I mean, beautiful moves on executive orders to keep developing these. So I think that I'd rather play the side on the positive developments, that there's going to be some money behind it rather than negative, because I find that the negative ones, right, the things that should bust an industry, aren't really doing anything.
Right.
At least in the short term.
All right. So what about AI?
Yeah, what about it?
What's your take? Investable? Is it too late? Has the train left the station?
So what do you have to invest in? You got Nvidia, you got Microsoft, you got Amazon. I like Amazon a lot. You have Google, which I don't like. Yeah. I think that Google actually is going to cannibalize on itself. In fact, if you do a Google search, if you do Google search right now, you're going to come up with the AI first and you don't need to go any further, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't remember the last time I clicked on something.
Yeah, that's killed their search business. And they're facing a potential breakup, which I think they are actually preparing for. They believe it's inevitable. And you're going to see 3 companies come out of it, I think. And the search is probably the least attractive, but YouTube's still growing. And their Google Apps thing is also growing. So interesting to see.
Facebook, Meta, just bought a 50%, 49% stake in an AI company, doing what they can to try to make sure they stay relevant and to have they're coming out with a new product that will essentially allow for the relief of your advertising and PR firm and utilize an in-house AI bot or agent or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the word has changed to agent versus bots these days. If you notice that, there's kind of a trend towards using the word agent. It sounds better than a bot. Use this agent that will allow for development and creation of marketing / ad and advertising campaigns.
I just signed up for one today just to see a demo of it that'll do your PR to like 350,000 podcasts.
Right.
It'll do an outreach to get you on whichever, you obviously.
I saw something. Which one was that one? Because I'm trying to think of the name. It was PR Botters. Was that the one?
Pod Pitch.
Pod Pitch, yeah.
Yeah, you probably got the same email as me. You have a podcast, you got the email. And it'll, AI is taken over. I mean, I use it for so much. I don't use it to actually create content, but I use it to refine it and augment it and to do due diligence on it as well.
Yep.
And it's pretty spectacular. And then I don't use just one AI. I use 2 and sometimes 3. Yeah. I'll use ChatGPT, Grok, and another one. I don't really trust the Google AI and the Meta AI. They got too many constructs. It's like Chinese AI. Try DeepSeek and put in Tiananmen Square, and you get a blank screen, right?
Yeah, blank stare, blank screen. I mean, I think that you look at, there's a great piece of Sam Altman on his blog. Just look up a Sam Altman blog. Now, how much of this he wrote versus AI, I don't know. But he wrote a piece this week, I think it was this morning actually, called The Gentle Singularity, talking about building millions of robots, initially by hand, and the robots building data centers, data centers building data centers. Kind of an interesting discussion by the 2030s. This is all going to be there to a degree. Now, whether that's 2035, 2032, I don't know. We were looking for robo-taxis for years. Supposedly one was spotted in Austin just this week.
2.
Oh, 2 is spoken 2 now.
Yeah, 2. They were following.
Amazing, by the way, how a week after Musk is no longer involved in Tesla, in Doge, all of a sudden the news shifts to Tesla. And all of a sudden we get these new things coming out.
That's called orchestration. That's orchestration at its finest.
I mean, just like that. Why didn't we have this a month ago? Because he was doing something else. He decided we got to do something here.
Yeah, well, it's the Rosie O'Donnell effect, where fights are created not because there's underlying animosity, but if they're created to shift the narrative, whatever it might be.
Speaking of Rosie, I went to high school with her.
You did, huh?
Yep. Rosie O'Donnell and also Bob Costas. He graduated about 10 years before me.
Wow.
And there's actually a Florida sportscaster who I'm forgetting his name now, and he was about 2 years before me. He actually graduated in the same class as Rosie O'Donnell. I was friends with Rosie's brother, but she graduated, I think, 3 or 4 years ahead of me. Mm-hmm. And what was his name? I can't remember his name now.
Yeah,
I see his face.
I never believed that that fight was really legit.
We talked about that on DH Unplugged. I talked about that with the one and only John C. Dvorak this week on DH Unplugged podcast. I don't know if you listened to that yet, but we talked about the whole spat and the distastefulness of it all, frankly. But
public eats it up, though.
The John said that it was created by Trump, essentially, to allow for an exit plan for Musk.
I totally agree with him. You know,
I'm not totally there. I'm not totally there. Just letting you know, I think it's way too harsh. I mean, you could have done something else. You didn't have to be so nasty. You didn't have to have Musk with the Epstein file stuff. And he came up with all sorts of reasons why each one of these things happened.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think people are that smart, by the way. I don't. Sorry.
I don't think they are, but I think the AI is.
Maybe.
I think Trump GPT set it all up here, Andrew. And,
possibly.
Hey, while we're at it, I'm just going to pitch my book here. According to Martin Armstrong.
Wait, can you make that clear? I can't see the bottom. Move your hand a little bit right there. Put it closer. There you go. Right there.
Yeah, The World According to Martin Armstrong, Conversations with the Master Forecaster. And, you know, a lot of forecasts he made seemingly out of the air, you know, have come to pass. There's at least a dozen of them in the book. Breaking of the Swiss peg to the euro, gold prices told me for 10 years they weren't going anywhere, and they didn't. And then all of a sudden he said they're coming, and then they are. And a lot of other forecasts. The link to buy it is in the show notes of this interview. And Andrew, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin. I was at the Bitcoin 2025 conference in Vegas, sponsored by none other than, I think, Blackstone. But maybe, yeah, I think it was Blackstone was there.
BlackRock or Blackstone?
You know, I always get them confused.
BlackRock has the ETF funds. The Blackstone's private equity. I would think it would be Blackstone. I mean, BlackRock.
I think you're right. I always get them confused. I stand corrected. I think it was.
Well, one's a rock, one's a stone. I mean, that's the difference.
And they're probably connected anyway, but we don't know. But the amount of money that was there, Andrew, was staggering. You know, these booths, I guesstimate, went from 50,000 to mid seven figures. And there were 35,000 people there, and media coverage and politicians. You know that someone told me that half of the Republicans' political contributions coming from the crypto sector.
I wouldn't doubt it. I've, by the way, just speaking about cryptocurrencies, in about 4 weeks, I think, Anthony Scaramucci is going to be a guest on my show, the Disciplined Investor Podcast, who the last time he was on, I believe, if I'm not correct, he had to do a hard cut because he was having a meeting with the Democratic National Committee to talk to them right before the election.
Mm-hmm.
And that was coming on the heels of him talking to the RNC about the points of that. So there's a lot of money to splash around because there's a lot of money to be made. A lot of congressional grifts. And I find that the stuff that's going on right now with the fact that, call me nuts. And by the way, just to be clear, you want to shoot me down and not listen to me because I'm talking about something about your favorite president or whatever. The fact is, I've never seen such a thing that the president's family owns a cryptocurrency firm, and now we're pushing cryptocurrency reform. A little distasteful.
I agree. Totally agree.
But with that in mind, putting that aside for a second, I'm a big fan of, like, let's say, Ethereum. I think there's a great opportunity there, especially with the stable coins that are coming through and that's being resolved, it seemed, and being utilized to a great extent as an alternative. I don't think the idea of utilizing Bitcoin as a currency for a country is a wise idea at all. As a matter of fact, I can go through a laundry list, which I'm not going to do, of reasons and rationales why it makes no sense to do that, from economics 101, from basic principles of how an economy is formed and runs. But, you know, it's been a nice run here. I think that, again, buying the dip, there's a lot of speculative money out there because the fact that we have governments that are continuing to stimulate. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is that there's been no negative impact by the trillions of dollars worth of bonds that we have amassed over the last number of years. And until something happens then, it's all going to be just, let's keep on doing what we've been doing. Until we don't get a reversal from a V trade down, or the half where the markets come down very dramatically and all of a sudden sit there like they did in the 70s for 15 years, for the 2000s, where the NASDAQ was so highly valued that it took, I don't know what it took, 18 years to come back to zero value again. Until we have one of those kind of flush outs, this speculative nature of trading is going to happen. And the excessive amount of marketing is going to go on, because you realize something, that just like in Vegas, where the casinos are not built on the losers, on the winners. They're not built on winners.
They don't build them for winners. That's for sure. My parents told me that.
Same thing with what's going on with the Bitcoin booths. You know, $1 million booth is not built for the lowest cost Bitcoin operation in town.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no objection if people want to buy any of these. I mean, I would stay away from the meme coins and the crap out there. That's, the shit coins, the
no value,
the waitress, whatever coin, or the name with the crazy dog, the German Shepherd coin, or whatever is this week.
Shiba Uno or whatever.
Yeah.
Garbage
right.
Not, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually own 40 million coins of Shiba Inu.
Oh, well, congratulations. What is it? What's it trading at these days?
I could tell you the value is about $1,800. But I figure if it goes to $1 ever, I'm in great shape.
Hey, you know what we call those, Andrew? We call them kleptocurrencies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the president should be floating crypto, 2 days before or a day before he becomes president. There's no excuse for that. And
but I do like crypto, aside from all that crap that goes on, because a lot of crap that goes on around the crypto universe, just like markets, by the way, with SPACs and some of the IPOs and some of the bad news and the trial balloons that are sent up and the bad earnings reports and the expectations. I mean, there's all that in finance. You know why? Because there's money to be made.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen.
Yeah. There's always.
But generally speaking, stay with the big boys.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, huh?
Yeah, those are, I don't know. I'll stop there. Those two.
All right, I'll buy it. So just tell us where we find your podcast, where we find you, Andrew.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube, which we don't have a big following on YouTube because we just started that, actually. We don't have a video. Amazon Music is pretty big. And, of course, over at Spotify and Apple Podcasts, thedisciplinedinvestor.com, or just look up the Disciplined Investor Podcast, or DH Unplugged, Dvorak Horowitz Unplugged is our other podcast. And there's plenty of stuff on our strategies, what we do, how we do it, all on thedisciplinedinvestor.com.
All right. Hey, appreciate you coming on. If you've got any questions for Andrew, myself, email kl@kerrylutz.com. And you'll find a link to Andrew's site in the show notes of this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com.
Kerry, what was that book again? I don't remember the name. Can you?
Sorry. The World According to Martin Armstrong.
The World. Okay, that's what I missed. The World According to. Okay, I got you.
And it's available on Amazon and wherever fine books used to be sold. All right, man. Hey, it's great catching up with you. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks so much, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.